girls who eat carrots.
I like girls who have a nice, pretty face.
Obviously. I like girls with a cute personality.
Yeah.
I like girls that are cute and have a good personality. I love...
Yes, indeed, we are going to talk about the breakup of One Direction today. Directioners, I apologize in advance if I re-traumatize you, but please don't flag me for bullying for this, okay? I am on my last straws with this app and I cannot afford that. Anyways, I thought this would be kind of fun and different. I'm not going to be delving into their personal lives. We're just going to be doing the breakup, but if you do want individual series on any of them, just let me know. And of course, we have to go through the birth charts first. So, Louis is a Capricorn Sun, Leo Moon, Gemini Rising, Sagittarius Mercury, Scorpio Venus, and a Sag Mars. The Gemini Rising is so apparent to me with him. Liam is a Virgo Sun, Aquarius Moon, Scorpio Rising, Virgo Mercury, Leo Venus, and Libra Mars. Our man Harry here is an Aquarius Sun, a Libra Moon, a Libra Rising, an Aquarius Mercury, an Aquarius Venus, and an Aquarius Mars. He's all air, and it makes absolute perfect sense. Zayn is a Capricorn Sun, a Virgo Moon, a Pisces Rising, a Capricorn Mercury, a Pisces Venus, and a Cancer Mars. The Cancer Mars explains a lot. And Niall is a Virgo Sun, a Leo Moon, a Libra Rising, a Libra Mercury, a Leo Venus, and a Libra Mars. Of course, he has a lot of Libra. That's going to come into play too, for sure. So July 23rd, 2010, One Direction is formed on the X Factor. This was right before the round where they go to the judges' houses to perform, and they all got cut. But then they ended up bringing them back on stage, and they said that they were too talented to let go of, so they wanted to make them into a boy band. Obviously, this isn't what any of them intended. They all came in wanting solo careers, but they worked really well together, and they seemed to all get along very well also. And then they started doing the video diaries together, which y'all saw at the beginning of this video, and people loved their dynamic. They loved it. And as you can tell, they seem to be, happy, enjoying themselves, becoming great friends. December 12th, 2010 was the X Factor finale, and they did not win. They got third place. But of course, that didn't really matter because this was clearly a cash cow. So following the X Factor, Simon Cowell signed them to his record, Psycho, and it's actually under Sony, so it's a major label, okay? Don't go thinking that One Direction is indie. But after that, they were becoming stars, they were becoming famous very quickly, they all seemed to be friends and really happy with where their lives were at. Harry and Louis even became roommates. Zayn, however, did say that it was a pretty harsh transition from being normal people to being teen idols, and for him at least, it was very difficult. So November 18th, 2011, Up All Night, their first album, is released. I think we can all remember the hype around that album. I wanted to show a clip, but things are glitching. That's why the clip was at the beginning of the last one, so we're gonna have to skip it. Anyways, a month after, on December 18th, they start the tour for Up All Night, and then a month later, they start the Up All Night tour. Look at these outfit choices. I love looking at photos from before because we all thought this was hot. We did. Those buttoned up to the top button. Very modest boys. Then in April of 2012, they're still on tour, but we find out that Louis and Harry are moving out of their house that they were roommates in together. So they weren't living together anymore, and some reports said that they had had a falling out and weren't even close anymore. Obviously, they never commented on this, but in the video diaries during the X Factor and even, right after the X Factor, they seemed to be extremely close to the point where there was dating rumors about them. And Zayn did say later on that they got to a point where they felt like they couldn't be normal around fans, that they could really not even interact around fans because they were all so convinced that they were dating. And it seems like from what he was saying, that was kind of a factor in their friendship kind of dissolving because we made it weird. November 9th of 2012, almost exactly a year later from their first album, they released their second album, Take Me Home. As you can probably tell, they are clearly working very hard. I mean, 2 albums in 2 years is a lot, plus touring, plus merch and photo shoots and all of that. And they're going to keep going at this rate. February 23rd of 2013, they started the tour for Take Me Home. And they also were not flying together anymore at this point, supposedly. They were taking separate planes. And the sources said that the official reason given was that Harry didn't like the fact Louis, Liam, and Zayn smoke on board. And of course, there was suspicions that there was more going on and that there was more issues under the surface, but they never presented those, at least in tours, shows, or interviews or anything like that. And then November 3rd of 2013, the Take Me Home tour ends. And in that same month, they released their third album, Midnight Memories. And now I think by this point, it's safe to say that all of them were individually dealing with their own kind of struggles. Liam specifically said that he had issues with drinking while they were in the band together, but that actually the band was a very stabilizing force in his life and keeping him in check. But those issues were continuing throughout. Zayn also already had bad anxiety, but apparently it got worse, as you can imagine, with fame, so that was an issue for him. Louis and Harry at this point were still not close anymore, and Zayn and Harry supposedly were also not friends. Vogue said they had as little to do with one another as possible. Louis and Zayn, though, were good friends, and they even got matching tattoos, and it seems like Liam and Niall were just kind of friends with everybody. Note that those are the two that both have Libra Mars. So April 25th of 2014, the Where We Are tour begins, and a reporter who came to interview them during this tour said that it was obvious Zayn was unhappy and that he was really quiet. And they also had a scandal during this time because May 27th of 2014, a video comes out of Louis and Zayn in Peru during the tour, and they are engaging in some herbal remedies, we'll say. I would like to show you the video, but I don't think I can, so I'm just going to summarize it for you. First of all, it starts with Louis saying that Zayn has an intense warm-up regime, including Mary J herself. So they're just engaging in herbals, goofing off together. Louis has always had very random humor. It's not my taste. I don't prefer it, but it definitely did fit the times. They also went by the police multiple times in this car ride, and every time they did, Louis would say, "That's the popo, 1-0, like counting up the score of them not figuring it out. Supposedly, though, Harry was so pissed that they made this video in the first place and that they let it get out that he didn't want to hang out with them anymore at all unless Niall was around. One article called Niall the unofficial peacekeeper, and all of the articles seem to kind of be on the same consensus of that, which makes absolute sense. He seems like he'd be the peacekeeper for one, but also all those Libra placements, how predictable. In October 5th, 2014, the Where We Are tour ends, and you can probably tell that they are on a pretty tight schedule here. I mean, at this point, I feel like fans could confidently predict when their next album and tour was going to be. Then November 17th of 2014, they released their album 4, which is their 4th album. And there were reports starting with this album that they didn't even record in the studio together anymore. They went in separately. And the reasoning given for it in all of the reports was that Harry didn't really like them. Of course, none of that was confirmed, just rumors, really. Now, November 17th, 2014, on the album release date, they went to perform on the Today Show. And of course, that was a big deal. It's the first press performance for the new album, and Zayn was not there. Matt Lauer, who we all know to be a glowing example of a model citizen, asked them about it, and Liam said that Zayn had a stomach bug and he couldn't be there. And Matt, who, again, we all know is a glowing example of a model citizen, kept pressing it and then asked specifically if Zayn was having substance issues. And there were rumors about this, but I mean, what are the odds that Liam is just going to say, yeah, that's totally it, you got me? No, Liam said no. And Zayn later that day made a statement basically saying how annoyed he was by that and that he actually really was sick and he was upset that he couldn't make it, and it really pissed him off that they were bringing up substance rumors. So February 7th of 2015, their On the Road Again tour begins. But pretty quickly into it, we have issues. On March 18th, this photo comes out of Zayn looking pretty cozy with a fan. And there was also this picture of them holding hands outside of the club, which doesn't look great. And Twitter was aflame at this, okay? Some of them were saying that he was cheating on his fiancée, Perry Edwards. Some of them were saying, if you think he's cheating, you're not a fan. It was rough. And by the way, this fan is Lauren from Love Island UK season 1. That's really the main reason that I knew who it was, not from this scandal. Love Island first, One Direction second. Sorry, that's probably an unpopular opinion. She said that she had asked him for a picture, so that's where this came from, and that the holding hands thing was because she had a little wobble, because, glug, glug, glug. You know how we are. And he was stabilizing her and asking if she was okay, but it caused a whole shitstorm, for sure. On Zayn's part, he tweeted, "I'm 22 years old, ... I love a girl named Perry Edwards, and there's a lot of jealous Fs in this world. I'm sorry for what it looks like. X." Kiss. So they both say nothing happened. Well, things just keep getting worse because March 19th, the next day, the Philippine Bureau of Immigration asked for bonds for Louis and Zayn. And these bonds were 200,000 pesos per boy, which I think is about 3,000 to 5,000 pounds. But basically, it was all due to the video of them smoking in Peru. Because they didn't want them taking any illegal substances, first off, because you shouldn't do that. And second, they didn't want young people to see them and think that that was a good idea and then do it themselves. And they were also saying that they were going to monitor them very closely. So they were not messing around here. They meant business. And that same day, Zayn decides to leave the tour. The publicity team said that the reasoning was stress, and supposedly he would be back with them in a couple weeks. Some other sources were saying that Zayn was struggling with fame and having his every moment scrutinized, and basically this fan picture debacle was the last straw for him. And I do think being a celebrity with a fan base of mainly under 18-year-olds is the hardest position to be in as far as fame, because young fan bases can be pretty insane. Unfortunately, though, if it had nothing to do with the Philippine Immigration Bureau, it was bad timing because it definitely made it look like maybe he wasn't happy with the sobriety conditions for that concert. But the rest of the band did keep on going with the tour. So on March 25th of 2015, One Direction makes the official statement that Zayn is leaving the group. Again, they are still on tour. Everybody was expecting Zayn to come back in the next couple of weeks, so this was a total shock. And supposedly Zayn actually texted them all that he was leaving right before he made the announcement because he didn't want anyone to be able to talk him out of it. And Zayn's official statement was, "My life with One Direction has been more than I could ever have imagined. But after 5 years, I feel like it is now the right time for me to leave the band. I'd like to apologize to the fans if I've let anyone down, but I have to do what feels right in my heart. I'm leaving because I want to be a normal 22-year-old who's able to relax and have some private time out of the spotlight. I know I have 4 friends for life in Louis, Liam, Harry, and Niall. I know they will continue to be the best band in the world." And when asked about the decision later, he said, "I guess I just wanted to go home from the beginning. I was always thinking it, I just didn't know when I was going to do it." But basically, on the day that he left the tour, he had decided it just felt right. He was going for it. But this was a long time coming for him internally. And he talked about it in a Fader interview later on, and he basically said that the reason that he wasn't enjoying it was because the management was controlling, and it really just wasn't the vibe musically that he wanted to be in. I think we can all agree that their images were not really up to them, and neither was their music, and that is really what Zayn has said. He said, "There was never any room for me to experiment creatively in the band." And one example he gave was that basically anytime that he would try to do something different vocally or make a new sound for a song, just be a little bit unique or be creative with something, they would have him keep doing it over and over and over again until eventually he gave them what they wanted, which he describes as generic as F. So, comes as no surprise that he also said, "I wasn't 100% behind the music, it wasn't me." And that basically it all felt like a cash grab to him more than like a creative endeavor. That's the vibe that I get. The rest of the band released a statement as well, and so did Simon Cowell. And Liam also separately released a little letter to the fans, basically saying, "We're not done, 1D is not over, we appreciate you so much, we're gonna miss Zayn," you know, all that stuff. And the band did continue to tour without Zayn, but there did start to be rumors that maybe they would replace Zayn or that they might break up altogether. But nothing was ever addressed or confirmed in that regard, and they seemed to be just going on as if they had always been 4 people instead of 5. Some reports did say, though, that the other boys were pretty mad that Zayn was leaving because they had all wanted to leave at the same time. The specific rumor said that basically after their contract was up, they were planning on breaking up and all having solo careers, and that they felt like he could have held out a little bit longer until their contract was over, and then they all would have had equal publicity and press for their solo stuff. So reports were that the boys were kind of mad because they all wanted to split up at the same time, all get the same amount of publicity for their solo careers, and that in doing this, Zayn was trying to get more publicity for his solo career. And he did get a lot of publicity from this. He had 4.9 million streams for his first solo song, and Harry only had 3.5 million streams in the first week when he released his first song. But there were other rumors coming out that part of the reason that Zayn quit is because One Direction had told him that he needed to be sober if he was going to remain in the band. Obviously, this fit right into the narrative that Zayn was using and that it was getting in the way of performances, like when he left right after the Philippine Immigration Bureau told him that they would have a bond and they would be monitoring him and the substance use and stuff. So all of that fit into a narrative really well. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. On March 27th, Zayn also did an interview with The Sun to explain a bit more, and he said basically that he just felt good about his decision and it just wasn't right for him anymore. He said the other guys were really supportive and that there was no hard feelings. And his main point was that he still loved the fans so much, appreciated them so much, and that he only ever tried to do it for the fans. Which of course makes you wonder, did he ever like One Direction? Did he ever like the guys? I don't know. But he did leave us with the consolation that the rest of the band was going to keep going. At this point, Billboard also looked into Zayn's contract so we could kind of get some insights into what his future might be looking like. And it turns out that while he was signed under contract with One Direction, he was also signed individually with Psycho, which again, Psycho is Simon Cowell's label under Columbia, under Sony. And that's important because it means that he could still have an individual solo career completely separate from the band on the same label. There was also a leaving member clause in the contract, which basically just meant that if one of them left, One Direction could continue on with 4. And as far as the rest of the band, they still had 2 albums left on their contract, so we were pretty confident that we were going to have them around for at least a couple more years given the rate they were going at. But even though we thought that they were still going to be together, the rumors were that they weren't really close anymore and that some of them weren't even friends anymore. They only confirmed that Liam and Louis were still friends and that Niall was basically friends with everyone. Again, Libra Mars. And on March 29th, more trouble for Zayn, because a Swedish model named Martina Olsson came forward and said that she slept with him. And the time that she says she slept with Zayn is the time that those fan pictures were coming out that everybody thought he was cheating with this other fan. She said security brought her to the VIP and she couldn't have phones or anything, but they ended up sleeping together. And the next night, which is when the pictures of him and Lauren came out, she said they slept together that night as well. She said she didn't say anything initially because she didn't realize that he was engaged, but then once he started tweeting about Perry and she realized, she decided to come forward and say something. So that's all rough for Zayn, but let's continue talking about 1D in general because, I just thought I would add this because this is just part of his whole shitstorm. So March 31st of 2015, we find out a little bit more about the band's finances, specifically that they were all about to get $3 million bonuses per person if they completed the contract, all 5 of them, which obviously they didn't end up doing. It was a loyalty bonus. Supposedly, though, Zayn said that he didn't have any incentive to stay because he'd already made a ton of money and he'd already bought his mom a house, which he had said was his ultimate goal. I think he was probably at a point where it's like, if you can live comfortably without it, there's no money in the world worth doing something that you don't really want to do. But May 6th of 2015, Naughty Boy, this is Naughty Boy, who was working with Zayn, he's a producer, they were working on solo stuff, and he tweeted out this picture of them together with the caption, "Replace this." And as you can tell, this was probably a jab at One Direction trying to replace Zayn, supposedly. Those were just rumors. Or at least Louis took it as a jab. So Louis tweets, "Remember when you were 12 and you used to think those Mac filters for your pictures were cool? Ha ha! Some people still do. Ha!" It's a little funny, I'll be honest. And at first, Naughty Boy replied back. And the reason I'm not showing you all these exact tweets is because it takes longer for the video to get reviewed if there's, text. Anyways, at first Naughty Boy replied to Louis and said, "And some people can't even sing. But who's complaining when there's auto-tune, eh?" And then the sunglasses emoji. Because he's cool. Louis didn't like that. He responded and said, "Jesus, forgot you were such an in-demand producer. How does it feel to be riding on the back of someone else's career?" And at this point, Zayn decided to step in. Probably should have just nixed that from the beginning, but that's okay. He decided it was time to respond at this point, and he said, "Remember when you had a life and stopped making bitchy comments about mine?" At Louis Tomlinson. Wow. And later that morning, Zayn tweeted out again saying he didn't really understand why people were attacking him for lashing out at Louis when Louis started the mean comments. Or really, Naughty Boy did, but. And Louis also tweeted out saying how grateful he was for his fans. So it's not feeling like people are on good terms right now. July 23rd, 2015, it's One Direction's 5-year anniversary, and they all put out tributes except Zayn. Zayn did reply to Liam, though, saying basically, "Thank you for the recognition." And there was reports at this point that Zayn was kind of annoyed because any breakup rumors that were going on about One Direction, everybody was blaming Zayn for, when in reality, there had been issues between all of them going on the entire time. And then July 29th, Zayn tweets out this picture with the caption, "I guess I never explained why I left. It was for this moment, to be given the opportunity to show you who I really am. Hashtag real music. Hashtag RCA." Hashtag real music? Oh, that's rough. That's pointed. Simon Cowell did also tweet out congratulating Zayn for this, which people were like, wait, is he condoning the jab on One Direction? The band that he himself created? But no, I'm pretty sure that he brokered this deal and got a cut of it, so I think that's why. And then August 4th of 2015, Zayn and Perry Edwards break up. They had been engaged for 2 years, and they'd been together for 4. And the reports claimed that he broke up with her over text. Because boys can really never give you the respect that you deserve. Meanwhile, in August, rumors are going around that One Direction is going on a break. And August 24th, Niall confirmed this in a tweet. He said that they were going to go on a well-deserved break, and basically that they weren't breaking up or anything, they just needed like a little vacation. And Louis and Liam also tweeted about this and reiterated it was not a breakup. And honestly, considering that they had been putting out an album every year, touring every year, plus photo shoots, plus appearances, blah, 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 on and on and on, they're working this man like mules. So I think that they probably deserve a break. And then October 31st, the On the Road tour ends. And on that day also, The Sun puts out an article about all the behind the scenes issues that One Direction had been having. And this was from the same reporter that broke the news that they were going to be going on a break. And they claimed to be around them a lot and said that this break was not a break, it was permanent. The sources said basically that they were calling it a break because 1, it looked better on paper for the fans. 2, it was better for them financially because people would be more likely to continue to buy stuff of theirs if they thought that it was just a break and not a full breakup. And that it left the door open for them just in case they wanted to come back to the band if their solo stuff didn't do well. And then that way it wouldn't look like, oh, we're just doing this because our solo stuff failed and we need money. And instead be like, oh, we love you so much and we love each other so much. When it seems like that might not have been the case. Not that they didn't love y'all, but maybe they didn't love each other. Directioners, please don't hate me. So they were all kind of planning on their solo careers according to this article. And the article also said that the record label was planning on Harry being a huge success, which they were right. And supposedly Harry had been planning on being solo after 1D like the entire time. I need to stop saying 1D. I absolutely hate it. But anyways, he had played it very carefully as he never wanted to be the man who broke up the band. So really, this man's strategic. November 12th, 2015, Made in the AM is released, and Zayn was not on this album, of course. One of the writers that they worked with on this album said that they weren't sure what was going to happen with the break, how long it would be, and all of that. So they were trying to make it the best it can possibly be, knowing it has to last as long as it needs to until we make another record. If we make another record. Then November 17th of 2015, Zayn does an interview with Fader. And I will say he did refuse to call fans crazy. He opted for passionate instead, which I think is kind and really shows that he did appreciate the fans and respected their support. However, he was very clear about the cons of the band, specifically that it was a very controlling environment, etc. We've talked about some of these things earlier in the series. He also said, "That's not music that I would listen to. Would you listen to One Direction sat at a party with your girl? I wouldn't. To me, that's not an insult. That's me as a 22-year-old man." Which I totally get. I mean, it's not really an insult. He's just 22 and into edgier stuff. They did also ask him about the cheating rumors and if that contributed at all, and he said no, there was no cheating at all, and that was just the media making up a story. He also denied that he broke up with Perry over text, which was another thing that people were very pissed about, although she later in her book said that he did break up with her over text, so unclear. They also talked about his new image and how he was basically doing whatever he wants now, smoking, hanging out with other girls, having fun, just having a good time, and he was really enjoying it. And one thing that he said about leaving was that he knew that this meant that he wouldn't be quite as famous, but he really didn't care, and said, "It was more about the people that I reach. I want to reach them in the right way, and I want them to believe what I'm saying. I've done enough in terms of financial backing for me to live comfortably. I just want to make music now." Kind of similar to Emma Watson in that way. And as far as the rest of the band, he said that he had talked to Liam recently. He didn't say he talked to any of the other boys, but he also did say his decision had nothing to do with them. And then December 11th of 2015, the rest of One Direction does an interview with Alan Carr. He asked them how long the hiatus would be, and Louis said, let's give it 18 months. And I think a lot of people at that point took that as a promise and had 18 months like on their calendar. And on the 14th, they all tweeted out, all four of them, different things that basically indicated that that was the start of their hiatus. So at the beginning of 2016, rumors start coming out that this is not actually a break, it's a full-fledged breakup and they are not getting back together. People were concerned, but we were staying confident because they kept reiterating that it was just a break. Just a break, they were coming back. March 25th, 2016, 1 year to the day that Zayn had left One Direction, he released his first album, Mind of Mine. At the end of 2016, though, Louis' mother passed away, and he decided to do a tribute performance for her on The X Factor, and that was on December 10th. And apparently right before she had passed away, she had told him, you've got to get back in contact with Zayn. Life's too effing short. And he did say that he had reached out to all of the former One Direction members, including Zayn, and they had all said that they would come to this tribute performance to support him. Well, all of them came, except Zayn. Which, as you can probably imagine, really upset Louis, and he took this basically as the nail in the coffin of their friendship. Fast forward to 2017, in May, Harry releases his first album solo, and June 14th of 2017, we are at exactly 18 months after they tweeted that they were beginning their hiatus, and we have no word from them on new One Direction stuff. But no worries. Maybe this was just the start of them working on stuff and they weren't revealing it yet. We don't know. We still had hope. Who knows? In the meantime, in October, we get a solo album from Niall. And Niall also did an interview and talked about One Direction and his friendships. He said he didn't talk to Zayn much because Zayn changes his phone number a lot, apparently. But he did say that he talks to Liam and Harry all the time. Even though they don't see each other in person as much, they're constantly in contact. The reunion was also brought up, and he didn't give a specific date, but he said, it's only been like 2 years or whatever, so I'm not worried about it. And it's true, they were only about 6 months off of Louis' original 18 months prediction. In 2018, a whole nother year passes, came and went, no One Direction. But we do get, in November, an interview with Zayn for Vogue. He basically said that he wasn't really ever able to enjoy the experience because of all the commercialism and the fame and craziness of the industry. And another quote that he said was that the relationships had broken apart. But at the end of it all, of those 5 years that he was with One Direction, he said he did not make any friends. So no enduring friendships between these five, for him at least. They asked him if he was in contact with any of them at all anymore, and he said no, and that there's things that happen and things that were said after I left, snide things, small things that I would have never expected. So, not a friendly note. March 8th of 2019, Louis does an interview where he talked about the falling out with Zayn. And he specifically addressed the fact that Zayn did not show up to support him when his mother passed away. And he said he hoped he was all right, but then he gave the finger to the camera. So after Louis had addressed that he was really upset that Zayn had not come to support him when he did his tribute to his mother after she passed away, 2 weeks after that interview, Zayn tweets out, I'd like to apologize for basically being a shit person, which people assumed was addressed to Louis, but he didn't @Louis, and I really hope that he just reached out to Louis privately as well. In November of 2019, Liam did a GQ interview and he talked about Zayn and One Direction. He said, I think Zayn's particular exit and the way he chose to go, we haven't really heard from him since he left. He didn't even say goodbye, if I'm being honest. It was a really sordid scenario from our side, certainly. A bit strange, it's difficult. This was right before Liam was releasing his first album, LP1. In January of 2020, Louis did an interview where he said that they would get back together eventually. So he gave us a lot of hope there. He didn't give an exact date, but it had been 3 years since those tweets that they were going on the hiatus. But he did say that they were exploring and enjoying their solo careers. Shortly after that, he enjoyed his solo career and released his first solo album, Walls. And then he did another interview in February of 2020 talking about the breakup, and he said, I was effing fuming at first. I thought I'd mentally prepared for a break, but it hit me hard. I didn't know why we couldn't just carry on. Basically, he didn't feel like they were overworked, and he said that he just kind of felt like they were throwing away an amazing opportunity, and if it had been just a 1 year break, he would have been more okay with it. But since it was like an undefined period of time, it really got to him, which I think is why he said 18 months. I don't think that any of them really had a timeline. And a lot of sources did say that he was more into the business side of it So I think that kind of explains some of his outlook on it, of like wasting an opportunity business-wise. In April of 2020, Harry talked about the possibility that they would reunite for their 10-year anniversary, and he said basically that they weren't going to do it during a pandemic, and they were going to wait for sure. Also in 2020, though, we got Niall and Liam on Instagram Live together. They were talking, and they mentioned that they wanted Louis to join, and they also mentioned a WhatsApp group and a 3-way FaceTime that they had with Louis. I don't know if the WhatsApp is all of them or just the 3 of them, but they're clearly all in touch. And in May, Niall confirmed to us again that they would not be having a reunion for their 10-year anniversary. So July 23rd, 2020 was that 10-year anniversary. They put out a website, 10yearsofone.com, a YouTube video of their highlights, and they all posted on Instagram about it. The only person that didn't post on Instagram, as you can probably imagine, is Zayn. Supposedly, he wanted the focus to stay on his solo work, and he felt like if he posted a tribute to One Direction, then it would take all of the focus off of him and put it back on One Direction, and he didn't want that. So Liam, Louis, and Zayn all have children now, and they all have solo careers. Obviously, it's pretty unclear if they're ever going to get back together, even though it was a hiatus and not a breakup. But my personal theory is that they're waiting until all 5 of them or all 4 of them feel like their solo careers aren't doing well enough and they want to bolster their publicity. And considering how crazy people are about this one right here in the middle, I think that we're going to be waiting a very, very long time. I just can't see them wanting to be in a group, especially Harry, when that would take things away from him, creative control, attention, uniqueness. And he has all of that right now. Like, why would he do that? He has plenty of money. He does not need to. And I don't think the other guys will do it without Harry just because of what a publicity boost he would be if they got back together. That being said, I could see them doing like a concert, like a one-time performance, maybe something like that, but not getting back together any time in the future. Maybe when they're old. I don't know. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment any additions you might have or any thoughts or opinions. I'd love to hear them, as well as any series suggestions or new video suggestions in general. And if you want to see more of me and more of my series, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next week with another one.